How's it going, everyone? Brian here with Spentys, and today in O&P, you guys have so much to do on a daily basis that a lot of times design and the way that devices need to be fabricated gets lost in translation because you have so much going on. You have 5 patients in the waiting room. Every clinic room is full, and you have to create a custom solution for each and every single one of those patients and do it in a way that is efficient and time saving, so that at the end of the day, when you're billing for these devices, your time isn't taking up the majority of the reimbursement that you get. And that's a big challenge for you all. And I feel it for you. I really do, because you want to create the best device for your patient, but you have a lot of pressure on you. And that's one of the reasons why we believe digital technology is a solution for you that you should be able to leverage when it's appropriate for the patient that's in front of you. Is it going to replace how every single device is manufactured today? We don't think so. But we think that the patients that and practitioners that find the best applications for digital technology are going to be the ones that are going to have the best outcomes when measured effectively. Now, today I'm going to walk you through how to create an articulated AFO using the Spentys workflow. If you have our demo account downloaded onto your iPad, follow along with me. If you would like to talk more about this later, be sure to reach out. But today, let's create an articulated AFO using the Spentys workflow. And I'm going to use this mold, which is actually 3D printed. So not carved, not poured, but the scan of the cast was done. The modifications of the mold were completed, and this was a file just sitting there that Spentys then 3D printed so that we had a physical representation of that modified scan. Let me join into this meeting on my iPad. Spentys is an iPad app. With a structure scanner and iPad, you could be able to go to your patient care centers, your rehab centers. You go to the patient's home, whatever you need. It's a mobile application, so that's quite nice to address, the demand of your role. Let me join in here. Let me share my screen. Now, I think I was right in the middle of an order testing things, and I was. So I'm going to go to Spentys and I'm going to start a new order. Let's create first a patient ID. And I'm going to make my patient ID LinkedIn test for a 12-year-old female. I can input any notes. Now, I want to preface the rest of this video that because I'm streaming from my iPad to my computer, it may be a bit laggy, but follow along with me. Know that you could download the Spentys app on your iPad and try it at your own pace, and you'll see that it's a much more streamlined experience whenever you have it in your own hands. But here we arrive on deciding which product we're going to fit onto this patient. Now, we previously identified that this patient needs an articulated AFO, so I'm going to select right lower limb. I'm going to select the segments of the limb that would be immobilized with the orthosis. We see here that SMO populates, but when we go up to the calf and shin, we now have the night boot, the solid ankle AFO, and the articulated AFO. Let's create an articulated. We have the option to go for the template, which is the standard workflow. And that's going to be a standard design based on your custom scan. Or we could customize the design of the orthosis. I'm going to be asked, do I want a molded inner boot? Do I want to add holes for laces? I have to input my patient's weight in kilograms. Select my joint, my plantar flexion range, and then we arrive to scanning. So I'm going to plug in my scanner. And one moment, I'll step over here. Click add scan. Scanner populates. I then take a 3D scan. Which is this. We get to the dorsal of the foot. All right, that looks like it's good based on the screen showing me a fully white and smooth surface. And indeed, it looks quite nice. So I could be able to pan around and just see if there's any imperfections with that scan. Doesn't look like it. Now, this scan, of course, we're not going to be creating an orthosis with a table, so we have to clean it up. I could take a photo. Maybe you've drawn onto the limb or you've drawn onto the cast, you've drawn onto the mold that you've just scanned, and there's some trim lines or some landmark identifiers, and you want to just take a picture for the record. Now, flexibility is key. You have flexibility today, and you should have that when you have your digital workflow, and that's what you'll see here. If you've scanned a modified mold, then digital modifications aren't necessary, right? Why take the extra time to modify digitally? So you could click no correction and then proceed with the rest of the workflow. But you could also click standard. If you're moving fast and you have had the standard design, the standard modifications, you can move through this workflow after taking the scan in 2 minutes. It's literally that fast. We're talking, if that is what you need and you look at the standard here and you say, okay, 90 degrees, so we're going to neutral in the ankle, the hind foot, and the forefoot, and we're putting a 5 millimeter offset on the malleoli so that the orthosis isn't interacting with that bony prominent area. If that works for your patient, you click standard and you rock and roll, because your modifications are quite standard. But you also have the ability to open up the form. The form is going to ask you what you would like the final position to be. And then our team will take these specifications and modify the scan for you to your specified request. You can always review it later and confirm that those modifications are exactly what you'd like. That's a value add that you don't get with traditional technology. In fact, if you were to say, here's my scan, here's what I'd like in regards to modifications, with a traditional design and a traditionally fabricated device, you hope that that technician or that orthotist that is doing those modifications, that biomedical engineer, is doing it in a way that you trust and you know that it's going to come back just the way that you expected it to. You have no real control over that, because after that's done, they're either going to, if you wanted to verify, they'd have to ship that back to you or take it back to your office, and you have to look at things and you have to verify it, and that's added time to your day. Most people are not doing that today. So this is a value add of digital technology where you could be able to see before the device gets fabricated what modifications were done, and if changes are needed to be made, you make them before fabrication, meaning that you don't do as many modifications after the device has been printed, because you're not, there's not a lot of mistakes that are happening. There's not a lot of remix that happen with 3D printing, because you most of the time have that insight in the beginning. But let's just say you don't want somebody doing your own modifications, so you want to do them yourself. And here you'll have the ability to do that. Today, you can be able to follow along the guided workflow if I would have scanned in full color.